Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. And in this video we'll be continuing my Beasts of Chaos army series as part of the Age of Sigmar army archive on this channel. And in this particular video we will be looking at the endless spells for Beasts of Chaos and also their Warhammer Underworlds warband known as, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, Grashrak Despoilers and Grashrak Fellhoof himself. Just sort of like flinching a little bit of how much it's probably mispronounced. But anyway, the only other thing I want to mention in this video is something I've brought up a lot with the Beasts of Chaos. How people say that they are completely unplayable, you can't win any game whatsoever, and they're unplayable army. I believe this to be wrong. I completely agree that they are not the most competitive army out there, and it's harder to win your games against quite a lot of matchups. However, what it means is that when you do win your games, you've won the games yourself and not the army winning them for you, well, you could be a completely useless general. So let us get into this video. So firstly, we will be looking at Grashrak Despoilers and Fellhoof himself. So a bit of lore behind him is cunning and filled with malice. Grashrak Fellhoof is a twisted prophet of the dark gods. Ruling over a band of black-hearted beastmen, he wields the corrupting energies of chaos to rend the flesh and tear at the souls of his foes. And then the Despoilers warband itself, this band of cruel-hearted raiders and brutal killers eagerly follows the brave shaman Grashrak Fellhoof into battle, for he always guides them to a fine feast of slaughter, plunder, and despoilment. Okay, so these guys, obviously being, one of the Warhammer Underworld warbands, they tend to be unique, which they are in this case. I think they all are. So what this means is that as you have a hero part of here, he is a named character, so he can't take an artifact command trait. It also means that when you buy these guys for 140 points, that is the price for both Fellhoof and the Despoilers. You can't buy them separately. You have to buy them at one fixed price, which is, like I say, 140 points. And obviously, Fellhoof is a leader, and the Despoilers aren't battle line. They're just a other unit. So let's go into their rules. And firstly, looking at Fellhoof himself. So he has a movement of 6 inch, a 6+ save, a 6 bravery, and 5 wounds. His description: Grashrak Fellhoof is a named character that is a single model. He is armed with an obsidian blade. And then looking at his melee weapons, and like I say, he only has one, and he is a wizard, so don't expect too much. But it's got a 1 inch range, 1 attack, freeze to hit, freeze to wound, -1 rend, D3 damage. Generally better than most wizards because they normally hit on a 4. Now this guy's hitting on a 3. So, nothing to sing and dance about, but it's better than most wizards. And then apart from, I suppose, he's only got 1 inch range on his weapon, while some wizards would be 2 inches. So take it, but I think the hit on freeze is better than 1 inch range. Right, okay, so looking at his abilities. So the first one is infused with bestial vigor, which I believe is the same as a normal brave shaman. So at the start of your movement phase, add 3 to the move characteristics of models and friendly Bray Herd units wholly within 12 inches of any friendly Great Bray Shamans until the end of that phase. So yes, it is the same. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning, Great Bray Shamans as well is that this guy is easily going to get compared to a Great Bray Shaman, or who should I bring? 2 Great Bray Shamans or, Fellhoof instead of one of them. So it's good that he has the shared ability there, as that is one of the main reasons to bring your Shamans. And then looking at magic, so this model is obviously a wizard. You can attempt to cast 1 spell in your hero phase and attempt to unbind 1 spell in the enemy hero phase. It knows the Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and Savage Bolt spells. So obviously we know Arcane Bolt is, we know what Mystic Shield is, so Savage Bolt spell is the unique one to this guy. So Savage Bolt. Savage Bolt has a casting value of 7. If successfully cast, pick 1 enemy unit within 18 inches of the caster that is visible to them. That unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. In addition, until the end of your next combat phase, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons that target that unit. So I'll go into that in a sec, but I just want to read the keywords for this guy. So it's got Chaos, Gore, Beast of Chaos, Bray Herd, All Herd, Hero, Wizard, Great Bray Shaman, and a Grashrak Fellhoof. So with this guy, the main reason you would take him is for that Savage Bolt. So if I'm honest, it might sound a bit weird that I'm chucking this review in with the Endless Spells, and why not with the Brayherd, because these guys are Brayherd. That's mainly because the warbands for Underworld are generally quite shit when you're in Age of Sigmar, bar a few of them. So I sort of looked over this one, and someone reminded me to just take a look at it, because that spell is pretty good. The D3 Mortal Wounds is nice, but it's the add one to hit rolls. For example, when I was reviewing the Bulgors, wasn't I, not too long ago, and the problem I said with them is that they're hitting on 4s generally. So now you can make them hit on 3s. Of course, it's specific and you need to hit the unit they're going to attack, and it's not just pick one of your friendly units and get +1 to hit, but it's a way to do it. And you can also do it with other models in your army that are, you know, hitting on 4s and you want to bring it down to 3. So that's good. It's nice how it's not just for Brayherd units, and it's nice how it does D3 Mortal Wounds as well. The problem with the spell, it casting value 7, which I understand it's not the highest casting value for sure, but it's not low. It's not guaranteed to go off. And I know the average on 2 dice is 7, so you would think so, but it's just quite simply not guaranteed to go off. And with this guy only casting 1 spell, he's better casting this one, or is he better casting one from the lore instead that the Bray Shaman can get access to? So it's a little bit hit and miss, obviously. I mean, if he gets Savage Bolt off, though, it can be very good, and it can play very much into a strategy, as when it says add 1 to hit rolls made with melee weapons, of course that's not going to affect your shooting units in the army, but it means if you want to swarm a big enemy unit and really smack them down if they're like a big solid block on an objective, it's going to help towards that. So, and then the next one to review, obviously, is going to be Grashrak Despoilers themselves. First thing to note is that there's going to be 5 models here, and they look like a mixture between Ungor and Gors. Looking at their War Scroll, firstly starting with the stat wheel, so they've got a movement of 6, a 6+ save, a bravery 6, and 1 wound. And the description: Grashrak Despoilers is a unit that has 5 models. Draknar is armed with a Ripper Axe, Morgoth Halfhorn, and Korsh the Sneak are each armed with short spears, and Ushkol and Gnarl are each armed with a short bow and flint weapon. Now, if that was mispronounced, I don't care. Okay, so looking at the weapons, so they have one missile weapon, which obviously they have all these weapons, but depending on the model has different weapons, as just described in the description. That's why it's worth reading the description, not just presume it's all a load of stuff you don't need to read about. Okay, so the missile weapons, so it's just a short bow, 18-inch range, 1 attack, 4 to hit, 4 to wound, no rend, 1 damage, so just similar to a Ungor Raider bow. And then the melee weapons, we have a Ripper Axe, so 1-inch range, 2 attacks, 4 to hit, 3 to wound, -1 rend, 1 damage. The short spear, which is 2-inch range, 1 attack, 5 to hit, 4 to wound, no rend, and 1 damage. And flint weapon, which is 1-inch range, 1 attack, 5 to hit, 5 to wound, no rend, and 1 damage. And then looking at the abilities, we have a Grashrak's Savage Herd. So roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to a friendly Grashrak Fellhoof while he is within 3 inches of this unit. On a 4+, that wound or mortal wound is allocated to this unit instead of Grashrak Fellhoof. I have to say that name one more time when I kill someone. And then the Violent Despoilers for their next ability is add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by this unit while it's wholly within enemy territory. And then the keywords, we have Chaos Gore, Beast of Chaos, Brayherd, All Herd, and Grashrak Despoilers. Right, I'm going to find someone to kill. And that is that. So the reasons why I haven't broken everything down in the spoiler review is just because there's nothing really remarkable there. Attacks, nothing to shout about. The Ripper Axe isn't bad. And then when we come to the abilities, the Violent Spoilers, I mean, that's good if you're in enemy territory, but you will not be attacking these guys first unless there's specific reason to do so. And then the Savage Herd ability just allows you to try and prevent Fellhoof dying himself. He does only have that 6+ save. Right, the point of this review is, are they worth taking? So It's good because of the Savage Bolt spell, like I talked about, from Fellhoof, and like I say, it's kind of a tax you have to take the spoilers as well, but I'm not going to lie, you're getting 5 models here, which, yeah, they have a crap save and everything, but 5 models for, 20 points, I believe, extra, because if you look at like a normal Great Ray Shaman, they're 120 points, from what I remember. So what this means is that you're paying 20 points for the 5 models that you can sacrifice at a Herdstone, I believe, or you can just have as like a screen for Fellhoof, just to help him be a bit protective while he's trying to get that spell off. And yeah, he only has a 6-up save against, for shooting, but if these guys are in range of him, that shooting will be -1 to hit. So it's a good way to keep him alive. I'll be honest, it's better than I thought it'd be, this warband, because a lot of these warbands, like I mentioned, are not worth taking. This is one I would consider taking. I don't know if it's quite as good as the Briar Queen and the Thorns of the Briar Queen, where they are, from Nighthorn, as her spell was very good for going against enemy movement. However, this is nearly on par, or is on par. Just get that +1 to hit, as can be really useful for your models that are hitting on 4s. And then the extra 20 points for the Despoilers is worth it, in my opinion. It's really a question if you've got points to spare when you're building your list. If you've got like an extra 20 points here, I would take Grashrak Fellhoof and his Despoilers over a normal Great Ray Shaman, if you've already got a normal Great Ray Shaman in your list. Also, the models are awesome in this edition here, in this warband, as you would have seen on the screen and stuff. So I think that's what I would do, in all honesty. But again, we always talk about if you've got a spare 20 points, you don't always do you? So it's a little bit. If I had the models, I would try. And I know I say that with a lot of things, but really that's just because you don't know how good something is going to be, so you actually try it on the table a couple of times. But I think these guys are worth a punt, I would say that, and I'm glad I reviewed them now rather than just writing them off as not worth even looking at. So thank you to Logan, who pointed out in my Monsters of Chaos video in the comments if I was to take a look at them, because they are generally quite good, and I have to agree, they're a lot better than I thought they'd be, and are potentially something that I would take in a list over taking loads of Great Ray Shamans, just to add some variety in there. And like I said, the models are awesome. Of course, you could use Fellhoof as just a standard Great Ray Shaman, as long as you tell your opponent that's what it is. Wouldn't see any problems there. Currently, as well, just say with the Fellhoof and Despoilers, is that they are still only available in Beast Grey if you can't buy them separately. But bear in mind that this video is being recorded on the 2nd of the 9th, 2020. So by the time you're watching this, you might be able to buy them separately. And if you can, great. Otherwise, you have to buy into a fairly large box. So now with the warband done, let us move on to the actual endless spells of the Beasts of Chaos themselves. So there are of course 3, and the first one we're going to look at is going to be Doomblast Dirgehorn, which, in case you're wondering, is the one that's shaped as a horn with all the runic symbols put on it. Okay, so this thing's going to cost you 50 points. To summon a Doomblast Dirgehorn has a casting value of 6. Only Beasts of Chaos Wizards can attempt to cast this spell. If successfully cast, set up a Doomblast Dirgehorn model wholly within 12 inches of the caster. And then looking at the abilities for the spell, firstly, Booming Cacophony, which will subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by units within 3 inches of this model. Beasts of Chaos models are not affected by this ability. So that's useful, as your saves for Beasts of Chaos generally across the board are pretty damn bad. So that will help you keep your guides in the game that bit further. It's great, it doesn't affect you, of course, as well. Just bear in mind, you've got any allies in or anything, that they will be affected by this, unless they have that keyword. So the next ability, and the last one, is a Rise in Discord. So at the start of each battle round, after this model is set up, add 3 to the range of this model's Booming Cacophony ability. If this model is dispelled, the next time it is set up on the battlefield, the range of the ability starts at 3 inches. So that's good. So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It reminds me a little bit of the Herdstone as well. And this, to be fair, plays quite well, the Herdstone, so that's quite cool. Then keywords, we have Endless Spell, Doomblast, Dirgehorn. So quite quick review on this one. It's going to cost you 50 points. So it depends really when it comes down to this. I put Endless Spells in my list, unless there's like a really specific reason I'm putting it in there. comes down to how many points I've got left after I've built my list, and usually 50 points go towards a command point, but I don't know how useful particularly command points are in this army. I think they're nothing you have to worry too much about, if I'm honest, from what I've seen. So if it's between a command point or this, to be honest, saying that I'll probably still go with the command point, just because having that reroll to charge or making that run a 6 can be very useful. But I would say if you've got 50 points left over, again, like I said with the warband, funny enough, I'd give it a go. It's not really underwhelming for me to say I wouldn't take this. Subtract 1 from hit rolls is very good, specifically how it's not against you as well. So I think it's worth taking. 50 points, you know, it's not the cheapest, but subtracting 1 from hit rolls is a lot. Of course, until this thing starts adding to its range, 3 inches is not far. You would only be able to target one specific enemy unit, really. And if you're targeting one specific enemy unit, is that really worth 50 points? Depends what army you fight against. If you know your opponent's going to bring like a big nasty thing, obviously it is. But in a tournament, to be fair, I'd say most tournament lists have a few killy things in it, so it could be useful. But really, like I say, it's going to be to trial and error. This thing could maybe not be worth 50 points, but I think also the problem with this as well, and something I will say of the endless spells, which is your Brayherd Shamans have got very specific spells they want to cast. Not just Brayherd, scrap that. You know, you've got your Thunderscorn as well, Shigaroth. So they have their own spells they want to cast from their lore. They really want to be spending a turn casting endless spells, because their own spells are quite useful as well. So just bear that in mind. So going on to the next one we're going to have a look at is going to be the Ravening Direflock. So this is of course one that's a whole group of crows by the looks of things. So description: a Ravening Direflock consists of 3 models. If it is dispelled, remove all 3 models. So summoning this thing, it goes off on a casting value of 5. Only Beasts of Chaos Wizards can attempt to cast this spell. It successfully casts, set up a Ravening Direflock model wholly within 12 inches of the caster and more than 3 inches from any units. Then set up the second and third Ravening Direflock models wholly within 6 inches of the first and more than 3 inches away from enemy units. So interest has to be away. Let's see what that's all about. So going into the abilities, we have Harbingers of Dark Omens. So subtract 2 from the bravery characteristics of units that are within 6 inches of any Ravening Direflock models. Beasts of Chaos units are not affected by this, thank God, otherwise I'd say don't take it now. It's not even worth like the 30 points it's going to cost you if it was to subtract 2 from your bravery, because your bravery is already really low. And then the Black Soul Cowardice. So if a unit finishes a move within 1 inch of a Ravening Direflock model, remove that Ravening Direflock model from the battlefield. The player whose turn is taking place must set it up again exactly 3d6 from its previous location and more than 3 inches from any enemy units, and then set it up the 2 remaining Ravening Direflock models wholly within 6 inches of the first model and more than 3 inches from any units. Okay, so basically it's got some teleporting shenanigans and stuff. But the main reason you take this is subtract 2 through the enemy's bravery characteristic. If that's something you really want to go for in the army, sure. I would say that this army is not worth doing that, just because there's no massive bravery bomb you can do to the enemy with that, in all honesty. Unless you're trying to make like, you know, a monster's retreat and stuff and shenanigans where you target enemy bravery, but that's not too important in this army. So even though this spell is cheap, I would take it, if I was to take it, to screen things and to stop enemies from like moving. But then again, this thing gets to move and the enemy finishes moving within 1 inch of it. So I might be wrong in how I'm reading this, but from how I understand it, I just don't think it's worth taking. But its keywords are Endless Spell and Ravenous Direflock. At least its casting value isn't too high anyway. And again, like I'm going to say with a lot of the stuff and newer models, you know, it does look cool. But then moving on to the most important one, which will be the Wildfire Taurus, the big ball-looking one that we all know when we think about the Endless Spells of the Beasts of Chaos. So this guy by far is going to be the most expensive, coming in at 80 points. So a Wildfire Taurus is a single model. It is summonable by Beast of Chaos Wizards, and it has a casting value of 6. And if the successfully cast goes off, then set it up a Wildfire Taurus model wholly within 12 inches of the caster. So it then says predatory. So the Wildfire Taurus is a predatory ender spell. It can move up to 12 inches and can fly. And then the abilities, we have Rampage and Stampede. So when this model is set up, the player who set it up can immediately make a move with it. That's cool, because something that a lot of people presume is that all predatory spells can move when they're set up. That is not the case. It has to specifically allow it, and it does for here. So it's something you shouldn't take for granted. And then the obviously main ability for this thing is going to be a Whirlwind of Destruction. So after this model has moved, each unit that it moved over and each other unit that is within 1 inch of it at the end of the move suffers D3 mortal wounds. If a unit has 10 or more models, it suffers D6 wounds instead. If this spell inflicts any wounds on a unit, that unit fights at the end of the next combat phase after the players have picked any other unit to fight in that phase. And then keywords is then a spell and Wildfire Taurus. So we can see why this is the most expensive spell, coming in at 80 points, one of the most expensive spells in the game, because it's got good offensive output, especially if you're going against a horde army, or it doesn't even specifically have to be a horde army. I mean, if you go against, I don't know, like especially a court army with a unit of 10 ghouls, that's like the minimum size unit, but it's a full 10. It's going to take D6 mortal wounds, you know, and then alternative, it's like Grots, and it's like 60 in a unit, it will take D6 more wounds. So it has a lot of damage output, but one of the main reasons people take this is to play the like activation wars in a melee, as the Beast Chaos are not the strongest at that, so they kind of need the Wildfire Taurus if they want to play a part in that, just to really hurt the enemy's chance of fighting first. What I will say is that sounds, oh, that's great, that's amazing, it's a pretty solid spell, it only goes off on a 6, you can guarantee it. The thing you got to be careful with is that the enemy doesn't use it against you. See, if you were to cast it, you want to really send it straight up their arse so high that it's going to take them a while to be able to send it back at you. So if you take the priority and they get to move your Wildfire Taurus, they'll probably just move it towards the middle of nowhere rather than coming straight back at you. Because with your Beast of Chaos units, if you have to fight last with the majority of them, a lot of them with their saves will not survive. So the Wildfire Taurus, I would say, is worth 80 points, but just bear in mind you have to make sure the enemy is not going to use it against you as best as certain. I mean, what it does mean is that if the enemy would definitely take the priority, it's going to make them have to think a little bit more, because this is on the table and it's going to be an absolute pain. The other positive of this model is that it is a beautiful model. The really nice thing about the model releases, well, I say model releases for Beast of Chaos, so it's really only a few spells and a scenery and a warband, but this is going to be one of my favourites out of the few. This tied with the Herdzone are my favourite. The Wildfire Taurus is an awesome ball looking thing. I've seen someone actually make it into a ball as well by giving it, like a rear end essentially. Which would be good enough reason for me to take it. I do think it is worth taking, just you have to have a game plan around it. Don't just cast it and just send it to the enemy and just forget about it, because it will come back to literally ram you up the arse. So with an overview of the spells of the Beast of Chaos, I would say the Wildfire Taurus is worth taking. Just be careful. And then I would say that the Dirgehorn is worth trying out. Only cast on a 6 as well, so you're more than likely going to cast it if you don't include your enemy on binding. And it is generally a good ability. It gives that -1 to hit. It's just starts with a short bubble. However, the Crow one, the Flock, I mean, you might strongly disagree, but I just think your army is not aiming towards the lowering the enemy's bravery, in my honest opinion. But if you do disagree with anything I said in this video, please let me know down below. It's great to learn. That's all we're here to do. Like I say, I don't actually play the army myself. I'm just looking at it from an outsider perspective. So it is always great to hear from your experience. And with that, guys, that is going to be the end of the part 7 of the army series for the Beasts of Chaos. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please smash that like button and that subscribe button if you hadn't already, as that massively, hugely helps out the channel. It's absolutely free for you guys to do so. Like I say, you got any comments, you want to ask any questions or anything, put it down below. I'll be happy to help out best I can. And then I want to say a massive shout out to my patrons, who you should be able to see them on the screen now. If it wasn't for these guys, I wouldn't be able to produce videos, simple as that. If you'd like to consider becoming a patron, please have a look at the link to my Patreon account at the top of the description down below. Even if you just look at it, I'll be greatly appreciative. Okay guys, so until next time, remember, stay hygienic, wash your hands, wear a mask, and of course remember, Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.